Thank you very much. It's not that easy to speak at the last and to be announced that we can go food, and I'm standing now between you and the nice evening. So thank you very much for this nice introduction. But I try my best, but it will take about an hour or so. But I think you're patient enough to do so. So please, you can just start with the video. Already have seen this one. I think it's perhaps you could take
Data promises digital value. But the wealth of data across the world has not yet been unlocked. Digital worlds are emerging, but we lack the tools to own our digital assets, to own our data. So, how can we reconcile the physical world with the digital? What role can the blockchain play? And can you unlock the value of any digital asset? These questions are at the heart of Web3. And at Zenota, we provide the answers. Following on from the genius of Bitcoin, our blockchain reimagines digital ownership and grounds it in a legal framework. Introducing smart data, which allows for rights to be assigned to data and enables peer-to-peer electronic trade through the world's first dual double-entry ledger. This allows machines to natively understand and deal with digital value, from smart money to smart contracts to smart data. A new decentralized file format that provides a perfected form of ownership via blockchain governance. Smart data is programmable and held in a state of dynamic cold storage, which ensures responsible decision-making or learning at machine level. The world can move to a new, inclusive vision of ownership based on identity, and together we can give life to data as a new asset class. As a first use case, Zenota announces a universal smart data exchange for in-game assets. Our Layer 1 protocol enables inter-game asset ownership, as well as provision for traditional financial instruments. We are on a mission to share our Layer 1 blockchain protocol with the world. A protocol that provides a basis for value and that can transform data into real tradable assets. Together with you, the smart data economy will become Web3's value network for data. Zenota is blockchain trade. Zenota is ownership. Zenota is digital value.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard a few keywords. You heard a bit about our project. So what Zenota offers is a kind of blockchain-based platform for the global peer-to-peer electronic trade with digital data. So, and it surely does not need any further explanation that the development of such a platform requires, on the one side, a technology, a sophisticated technology, but also including economic, social, and legal resources. So I'm standing here now not as a technician, not as a programmer or developer, I'm standing here as a legal. And just going back, the CEO and the CTO, Rulo Barry and Andrew Kessler, they started this project in 2014 in Zug, more or less together with Ethereum. But what they realized at that time is that on the one side you've got the tokens, on the other side you've got data. And the only ever-growing resource in the world is data. And tokenizing data, you can start with tokens, that's what Ethereum has done in a perfected way, or you can start with data. And we started to think and to talk about data. And when the two founders came to me, I was lawyer with MME, Legal Tax Compliance, a law firm. I was partner there, and I took the responsibility for this project in 2017. And when I saw what they can do with data, to transfer data into an ownable form, into a unique form, I will talk about that a bit later, that blew my mind. And then they went back, and I was waiting for another 1.5 years. They've been sitting in South Africa under the tree, thinking about how can we handle now this specific form of data with a specific form of blockchain, a new generation of blockchain, enabling this peer-to-peer electronic trade with digital data. In 2019, they came back with a new blockchain technology combined with this new technology of how to handle data. And they merged these two technologies, and then I decided as a partner with a law firm in Zug to join this project, to leave the law firm and to join that very, very interesting journey. So what we are claiming is that we can establish ownership on digital data, and that we can establish a peer-to-peer trade of data on this first layer protocol. And just to explain the impact, what does that mean on the first layer protocol? A first layer protocol is, for example, a Bitcoin protocol or Ethereum protocol, a protocol which handles the trade or the specific transaction and not an application on it. Why is that important? When Farhang, I'm very, very happy that you made this introduction in the blockchain. That helps me a lot, and I can shorten it from 1 hour now to half an hour. No, but what helps, if you keep it in one system, you solve, and I've seen it on your slides, the Byzantine fault tolerance problem, it's called. Just imagine, there are 4 generals in a city, and they want to attack the city at one. They know all 4, they have to attack the city at once, then they will succeed. If just 1 or 2 or 3 will attack, they will fail. So the problem now is, shall we start? And when do we start? So there's a message coming now from one general to the other, and he says, we will attack this afternoon at 3 o'clock. You've got 2 problems. The one sending you the message, is he really the one sent by the other general? And the other question is the message all right? Is the message really, we attack at 3 o'clock, or is it 4 o'clock, or 2 o'clock, or do we not attack? So there are 2 problems, and you can't solve the problem. If you have the message from one channel to the next channel, you have the problem that you cannot trust. There is somebody in between. And that is an unsolvable problem. If you link together 2 systems in blockchain or in any digital system, if you link 2 systems, a hacker can always attack this messaging between one system and the other system. So the more you can embed into one system, that's the only way to solve a problem. The only way. And that's why we tried to widen up the first layer protocol to execute the full transaction, the full trade in electronic data within this first layer protocol. That was our goal, and that was, and now I want just to give you some ideas about the smart data, how we handle it, and the blockchain. And you heard it in our, you heard it in our short video. We are based on Bitcoin. So there are 2 main big protocols, as we already heard. It's Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then there are some others. Most of them, they are pretty close to Ethereum approach. One is proof of work, which is, let's say, the gold standard. That is what Bitcoin has decided, Satoshi Nakamoto has decided. They have some disadvantages, this proof of work. It's the most safe, it's the safest, it's the gold standard, but it has a high energy consumption. We know about this problem. A Bitcoin transaction needs more electricity than whole of Ireland, for example, which is insane just to do a transaction. And the other problem is scalability. You've got 7 transactions a second. If you want to trade data, 7 transactions a second is not enough. And the third problem you have with a Bitcoin protocol is on the long term, now from 2008 until today, Satoshi had the idea that it is a democratic system. You can do it on your mobile, you can do it with your CPU, you can do... But what happened is that some smart guys, they produce specific processors which have been specified, ASIC it's called, just to do these Bitcoin transactions. Just 1, 2, 3, 4. And they've been so fast that you had no chance with your computer, with your mobile to mine, to be a part of the system. You have no chance. And that's why there is a centralization tendency in Bitcoin. Today, 5 consortia are controlling Bitcoin. If they would collaborate, they could take over Bitcoin and they could redraft the whole ledger if they would. It's not a very high risk, but it shows that the vision of Satoshi to have a democratization of all this mining process has vanished. So we fixed that. We have the same approach as Bitcoin, but we've got a scalability to more than, at the moment we are at 4,000 with a very basic system, our infrastructure. We have just 1% of the energy consumption, and we solved the problem of decentralization. So what Satoshi has done is genius, but it was a first step. So what is a Bitcoin? What is a Bitcoin? There are hundreds of answers, but let me say as a legal, it is the right to unspend. It's the right to, if you've got 1 Bitcoin, I can spend it, and if I transfer it to Fang Ha, he can transfer it. He has the right to unspend. It's just an entry in the ledger, it's nothing, but he has a right to spend it. Like if you've got a $1 note in your pocket, you don't own the paper, or you're not interested in owning the paper. You're interested in spending the $1 note. And if I spend it to you, you can spend that $1 note. So it's a circulation of this $1 note. It's one produced and then it circulates in the world, and one spent, he unspends, he unspends, he unspends. That is Bitcoin. And this is very, very special, and there's a lot of technology, but there's one problem. What do you spend the Bitcoin for? It's only half of the transaction. If you spend a Bitcoin, you get a Ferrari, or you get a digital file, or you get whatever for it, it's not on record. Remember, on May 22nd, 2009, Mr. Laszlo, he bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins. 10,000 Bitcoin. 1 Bitcoin we've seen was at 67. Now at the moment it's about $40. $40 multiplied by 10,000 for 2 pizzas would be today. But at that time, it was 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas. You still can today see on the ledger this 10,000 Bitcoin transaction. It's on the ledger, immutable forever. But that it was spent for the 2 pizzas, that we know from a Bitcoin forum. It was discussed at that time. Oh, at the first time I bought something for a Bitcoin and somebody accepted a Bitcoin or 10,000 Bitcoin for my 2 pizzas. So a happy guy. So what we do not have is this counter transaction. And if you want to set up a digital trade, a digital system
for trade with digital data, you need to integrate both transactions, what it is for. So what Satoshi has done for digital data, for digital cash, now Zenother does for digital data. So we expand the whole system to digital data. And from an economic perspective, let me now just summarize what our challenges was. We take our cryptocurrency, which is Zeno, which is more or less the same as Bitcoin, but digital data are completely different to digital cash. As I said before, you know, you've got the dollar, and the dollar will exist forever, will circulate. A Bitcoin exists forever, should be circulated around the world, you hold it, you spend it, but the vision is forever. And that is what the Bitcoin ledger is done for. It's on record forever. But data are produced for a specific purpose. And then you change it, you even want to delete it, it's transacted or copied. Data has a completely different life. So we had to construct something, a digital system, which can handle data with these other characteristics than the Zeno. So we need to have two transactions. One is for the Zeno, for the payment, and the other one is for the transfer of the data or the right to data. So just imagine we have a lot of possibility, or what does a data represent? It can be, we heard a lot today, you know, identity, citizenship, health, voting, license, associations. We heard banking. And at the end of the day, and you also mentioned it, it is a handling of rights. And what is the most important right you have and in a digital economy and in a trade? It is ownership. You need to make data ownable. And so let me just go into that idea. What is ownership? And we have to start with ownership. And let me just make two examples. You're climbing a mountain or hiking in the mountains, and you're thirsty. And you kneel down and you want to drink the water from the river on that mountain or the creek. And then you ask, who owns that water? Do you know who owns the water? Somebody owns perhaps the land, but does anybody really own the water? No, you can drink it. You put your hand in it, you drink it, you cool your arms. But if you climb on the top of the mountain and you're thirsty and you buy in the restaurant on the top of the mountains a bottle of water, you can own it. This bottle of water is ownable because it is in a container, because it has a form, because it's tangible. You can take it in your hand. So the same water in the river you cannot own. Data is not ownable. It's a flow of information. But if you put it into a specific form, then it is ownable. So this is an example and a starting point why we need to transform data in a form which is ownable. I come back to this one. Second example. You own a real property. You're registered, your property is registered in the land register, almost everywhere in the world. And now, what is the concept of ownership? You know, just to mention, in the whole globe, we've got, let's say, 180 states in the world. Mongolia, Switzerland, Texas, California, Japan. Each country has its own law of ownership. I'm not quite sure about Dubai and Abu Dhabi, whether there's one ownership in the United UAE, but it is not very different, but from a legal point of view, there are different concepts of ownership. But there is one thing which is the same around the globe. What is the core of ownership? And just imagine John Wayne in a Western movie sitting on his land with a rifle in his hand, and somebody wants to take away his land. And he can say, "I'm shoot you if you take my land away." Defending ownership is the core of ownership. Possibility to defend ownership is the core of ownership. So we don't need a rifle anymore to defend ownership of the land, because we've got the land register. So if we can make a data unique, and if we can implement into our system how to defend ownership, and if we put these two together, we've got a digital system for international trade, global trade with with digital data. So ownership is not just one right. Ownership is a whole bundle of rights. You know, you can make a loan, you can even give somebody this computer, and he has possession, he can use it, he can make profit, but I'm still the owner. But he uses it. So you can do a lot with ownership, a lot of different rights. And what we are now looking at is, how do we make a data unique? And our technology is, what we heard here, is smart data. It's the form or the size of the data does not matter at all. We can convert any data. We can even convert streams. A movie on a stream, we also can convert into smart data. What do we need for it? On the one side, we need to make the data unique. We need to give the data its own DNA. So we have a technology, to take the example from the water, to put the data into a bottle, like a file, but it's a specific data format, and this specific data format has its own DNA. Even if you've got 10 paintings, they are very much the same, you know, like prints. And then in art, you're interested in art, aren't you? You've got 10 prints, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 9, 10. You buy number 8, and you're the owner of number 8. And it's written there, 8 out of 10. And that makes the value of that data, because it's the number 8 from the 10 prints of this piece of art. We can do the same. If you've got a file, precisely the same file, Hello World in a Word file, and you convert it 10 times, you've got 10 different files in a completely different DNA. So I can prove on machine level, number 5 is mine. Metaphorically spoken, they've got 10 different colors. I'm the green guy. All the files on the world which are green are mine. So if I've got the file and I can prove this file is green, has a green DNA, I can prove my ownership. Secondly, you need to control and manage this file. So you need a technology that I can transfer my file to you, and then it turns from yellow to green, because green is his colors. And thirdly, you need a stable legal framework for it. That's what my responsibility is within the company. So if we claim here Tenora is the world's first legal framework for all the things digital. Things digital is then because we can make files, digital data, unique and revel. We can therefore introduce a perfected digital ownership because you can own the file like you can own this thing here you've got in your hand. And that makes the perfected NFT because you own the data. You don't own a tokens, even if it's standardized. So the problem is, if you exchange $1 to the pizza, there is a trade. On the one side the dollar, on the other one the pizza. If you transfer the Bitcoin and for pizza, this pizza vanishes. You don't have it on the register. You don't have a receipt. You have nothing. You just transferred a Bitcoin and you don't know what, and you have no record for what it has been done. The perfected digital transaction, let's assume this sword is a sword in the gaming. So it can be $50,000, it can be $500,000, depends on the game and depends on the quality of the sword. It can even be improved by a good player. It gets more and more credits and it's more value in it. So what we need is a perfected transaction on two ledgers. In one transaction, we need to have this transaction. So that Alice is now the owner of the sword, and Bob is the owner of the Bitcoin or the Zeno in our technology. And there's one transaction. There's a dual entry, a double entry, because both transactions has to be executed, and the druid is the one managing this transaction so that you have the proof, the blockchain proof that the transaction has been valid transaction. Anyone can rely that this is a valid legal transaction. So let me just give you a very short introduction into our technology. Perhaps that's for some of you. It's easier to understand with your introduction, but it might be, and I really make it very short. Sorry. That is our blockchain. When Farhang told us that there are three functions in a blockchain. One is you create the block. Then the miners are going to certify it, to verify it, and say, hey, all conditions are fulfilled, done. The third is you store it online. Has done, or Satoshi had all three functionality with the miners. They do everything, and that is the safest you can have, but that's the reason why it's so inefficient, it's so energy consuming, and so slow. So we splitted these three functions. If a user here, I'm also now the teacher. If the user here now sends the request to the compute node, the compute node is like, it's a service provider. It can be Google, it can be Swisscom, it can be NTT, it's an industrial server on the industrial level. It's running just this program. They create the block, and then they choose just a limited number of miners around the globe. It can be anybody. It can be your mobile, it can be a computer, it can be an ASIC, it can be anybody. But to secure the security, to get at the security level, you don't need to have 100,000. That's a waste of energy. We just take a selection. But selection is difficult. How to select? So we have taken a mathematical method which is approved by all scientists around the globe. It's from Luzern at the ETH. It's an absolute random number. It's very difficult to produce. There's a lot of technology, but you can rely and you can prove it's a random number. So this selection of the minus, it's selected absolutely randomly. And for those doing statistics, it's great. Absolutely random makes it computable. You know as a miner what your ROI is, because you know there are so many miners. There are so many miners who can participate each 30 seconds on a transaction. So you know, and you have no costs because your computer is not doing anything until he get a request. Can you mine for today, for the 30 seconds? So it is a very clear rhythm of 29 seconds with a limited number of miners. Based on this random number, they will mine, send back the OK block is verified, and then the compute node with storage on. So this compute node and storage node, they are both decentralized, industrial level. We've got service levels, so you can, on point, you know, this is the service level for executing. So if you've got an ecological project like we've seen with oxygen, he can program, just execute it when it is perfected from ecological perfect. It's that the whole system is balanced. If you want to transfer $20 million on the system, you want to have the highest security level. So you can program, just transfer it when at the moment it is the highest security level. No blockchain has service levels in that way in its own system. So that is in very short, and there's a lot of technology behind, and there are 3 patents behind, and it will be an open source solution, or is an open source solution, but this is the secret why we can scale, why we can be so energy efficient, and why there will be no centralization in our system. That was the wrong one. I don't know. There should be a last slide, but I can do it without, and then I close. So you've got 6 minutes left, if you allow me. 6 minutes. Is okay? Thank you very much. So we know now that we've got a first layer protocol, and we know that it is a very efficient way, and we can do the whole transaction in this first layer, and I explained you in brief terms that we can make files unique. So the last thing what we need is, if the center is on this side and the sword or the digital asset is on that side, we have to combine it. And the nice thing is, you know, I was sitting together with Andrew Kessler since 2017, and I translated my lectures in law to Andrew Kessler. I translated it into English, and we went through the 1 year course within 1.5 or 2 days. I wanted just to give him, as the Chief Technology Officer, the way how we legal think. And it's a thinking, you know, which is more or less global in these general terms. So we sat together, and now we started to discuss how can we combine this transaction with this transaction, and the miracle of lawyers is freedom of the will, and we are going to negotiate. You are free, I am free, but we have a joint will, and then the contract is concluded. That is, in simple terms, what we need. So this Druid, combining the complete transaction, is very much step by step. I address to you, I expect from you 10 sinners. You are sending it to the system. I expect from you the digital car or the sword. Then we put this together into one number. It's also technology behind, and so, but at the end of the day, our transaction we want to do has the number 1 to 3. And now I am going to send into the system the 10 Xenos. My expectation, I get your sword and the druid number. That this is the link. You are going to send to the system the same, you say, I expect from me the sword. I expect, I need your, this is the transaction number. And then, if the druid sees, okay, everything is there, it can be asynchronous, only when both parties have fulfilled their obligation, it's transacted. So you take no risk, I take no risk, you got the sword, I got the Xeno, transaction is done. Within this basic layer, there is a lot of more technology how we then can execute or can build a whole legal system around it, a compliant legal system, a system where KYC can be done, where trade compliance, now in our times, unfortunately very important, can be done. We can be compliant to real contracts. Sorry for saying this, but we lawyers always say a smart contract is neither smart nor a contract. It's just a kind of execution of what we agreed upon. Unstoppable, it's not really handy, or it's not, you cannot really use it for digital trade. We need to have a possibility to build the whole legal framework as we know it in the traditional world, and to copy it or to mirror it now in the digital world for this digital data. So that is our technology. Where are we? The Xeno was created on the 11th March last year. We are producing Xenos. We are now in the testing of the system, of the whole transaction system. We are setting up, as it was mentioned in the video, our first use case, which is in gaming. There are 3.5 billion gamers in the world. There are, in 5 years, 80% of the gamers will play a game just to earn, play to earn. There is an increase of the volume of 20% each year. And it is a huge market, but they are very much siloed. You've got a game here with the game item, you've got a game here with the game item, you've got a game here with a coin, you've got a game here with a coin. What we can provide with our technology is a platform where this game and the game market can be interchangeable between the games. That is what we're going to build this year. So we are very, very proud that we now, after almost 8 years of development, can come out of the shadow. We've been always under the water, and we always tried to develop, to perfect our system, and not just a white paper. We just wanted to provide a running technology. So if you have any questions, just let me know. We are now really in a very, very, very interesting phase this year to set up this whole system, and I'm looking very much forward to this system, because this system really now allows NFT in a perfected way. And let me say it as a lawyer and as a professor, this is a possibility for lawyers in the next. It's legal tech. It will be a new legal tech built on this system, and I'm looking forward to that future. Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody, thank you so very much for taking part. For all those who just stayed tonight and tomorrow, we're going to depart here at 11, between 11 and 11:30 to the Formula 1 racing track. The point is very, very, very important. No matter who is going to enter the bus, if you want to enter the Formula One racing track, you must have a PCR test, negative PCR test. So we are trying to organize tonight that the people from the PCR test are coming back, because we have just organized that the speakers for today have the PCR test. But it will not be possible to attend the Formula One racing circuit without the proper PCR test. So therefore, we will let you know when this is going to take place. Tomorrow the bus is going to depart at 11, between 11 and 11:30 a.m. And now, please follow me all to the blue bar in the 6th floor, where the dinner is ready for everybody. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. And now join me to the blue bar.